In the late 1800s, Japan had achieved something extraordinary. It had modernized. Factories rose where rice fields once stood. Railways stitched the islands together. Warships flew a new flag across the open seas. Japan had survived the age of empires, but survival changes a nation, and sometimes it changes in a way that no one is intended. Because once a country learns that weakness invites domination, it begins to fear weakness everywhere. Look at the map of East Asia. Japan sits off the coast. Across a narrow stretch of water lies Korea. Beyond Korea lies Manchuria. To Japanese strategists, these were not distant lands, they were stepping stones or barriers, depending on who controlled them. If Manchuria fell under a hostile influence, Korea would be exposed. And if Korea collapsed, Japan's own security would feel fragile. So the conversation shifted, not publicly, not dramatically, but gradually. What if control was safer than vulnerability? What if expansion prevented invasion? The language was defensive, the action would not be. Modernization had worked, but modernization had a cost. Factories consumed coal, shipyards devoured steel, and railroads required iron. Japan did not possess enough of these resources. Industrial strength demanded steady supply. Korea had farmlands, Manchuria had coal and iron, as well as land. What began as modernization to survive began creating dependency, and dependency felt dangerous. If foreign powers could cut off their resources, Japan would have been fragile, and therefore it began to look like an insurance, not greed, but security. By the turn of the century, Japan had defeated China and Russia. An Asian nation defeating a European empire stunned the world. Japan was no longer a weak observer. It was now a recognized superpower. But in the world, power came with expectations. Many European nations had colonies. The United States extended its reach overseas. Empires were not considered immoral in that era. They were considered normal, necessary, prestigious, and Japanese leaders observed the message. If we do not expand, we will fall behind. If we fall behind, we will be pressured again. Imperial behavior became a proof of equality. The pressure of Korea intensifies first. Political influence and economic leverage, as well as military presence, affected the Korean sovereignty, and it eroded, not through a single invasion, but through agreements, advisors, and protective status. Until 1910, annexation became official. Korea was absorbed into the Japanese Empire. Infrastructure expanded, railroads built, industries developed, but the governance was centralized under Tokyo. Language policies shifted, land ownership changed, and resistance was suppressed. Japan framed this as modernization and order. For Koreans, it meant loss of autonomy. The survival logic had crossed the border. Manchuria followed a different path. Railroads first, investments, military presence. Then in the early 1930s, a crisis, an incident along the railroad line became justifications for occupation. Within months, Japanese forces secured and controlled. A new state was declared, and nominally independent, effectively directed by Tokyo. Manchuria became an industrial frontier. Factories multiplied, resources extracted, rail networks expanded deeper into the continent. To military planners, this meant security. To global community, it's single expansion. To local population, it meant rule without consent. By now, the Japanese state has grown powerful institutions, a modern army, as well as industrial conglomerates, academics, strategy planners. Expansion validated their purpose. Each success reinforced their belief, and each territory secured a justification for further territory. The system rewarded forward movement. Caution looked like weakness, and weakness, history had taught them that invites domination. The logic that once protected Japan now propelled an outward movement. It's tempting to describe this moment as sudden, as if Japan transformed overnight. But empires rarely begin with declarations of conquest. They begin with fear, with calculations, with the belief that control prevents catastrophe. Japan had modernized to avoid being colonized, but modernization had created an industrial appetite, a security perimeter mindset, a military capable of projection, and they believed that expansion guaranteed safety, as well as survival has evolved into dominance. Japan did not wake up one morning and choose empire out of cruelty. It expanded step by step, security and resources, as well as status and momentum. Each decision was defensible in isolation. Together and transformative, Korea was taken in control, and Manchuria was controlled by military. Asia was reshaped. The lesson is uncomfortable. A nation can begin by protecting itself and end by controlling others. The same logic that once shielded Japan would eventually carry it into a deeper conflict and far more darker chapters.